Oftentimes in public debates, we hear the issue of corporate taxes come up. Democrats want to raise them, Republicans want to lower them. And up until researching for this video, I just went along with my political views norms without asking questions, while barely even knowing how corporate taxes work. Today, I hope to enlighten you with an overview of corporate taxes, while also providing evidence for both sides of the issue in the ongoing public debate. In order to formulate an opinion on corporate taxes, we first have to find out what they are and how they started. And to do that, we need to go back to the early 1900s, when corporate taxes were first implemented in the US. Corporate tax refers to a percentage of profits that C corporations pay to the government. Initially in the US, this tax was relatively low, but as government spending increased, so too did the corporate taxes, and they climbed as high as 52% in the 1950s. At the time, it was generally believed that keeping high corporate income taxes was beneficial and would not harm or decrease economic growth. However, over time, more and more companies seeked to avoid paying the high corporate income taxes in countries like the US through tax loopholes, like moving their headquarters to places with lower rates like Ireland, while simultaneously moving their money and intellectual property into small countries with no corporate tax at all. In fact, in 2010, GE, along with multiple other profitable corporations, paid $0, nothing, in corporate income taxes. Almost 2/3 of the profits from large U.S. corporations are held offshore in countries with a low or even zero corporate tax rate. These are often called tax havens. The instances of this practice have gone up recently due to how easy it now is to substitute labor for money, and how easy it is to move that money across borders. Intellectual property can be shifted even more easily to reduce taxes paid on those ideas. Year after year, these multinational corporations literally pay people to find ways to avoid taxes because it makes them so much money. In the 1980s, one of these people, John Carroll Jr., got an operetta made about him by his firm, all about how he was legally evading taxes. Look at this. So to keep competitive and keep companies in the US, the government has had to lower our corporate tax rates drastically. Most recently in 2017, when the rate was lowered from 35% to 21%. But was this necessary? Trump administration economic advisor Kevin Hassett argues that it is, when he stated in a recent paper that almost all of the burden of corporate tax rate changes falls onto the working class, with a 1% increase in corporate tax resulting in a 0.5% drop in income for workers. Therefore, a decrease in corporate tax rate would help the working class. However, not all economists agree that lower corporate tax rates would help the working class. Don Schlagenhoff, great name by the way, argues that a corporate tax rate drop is good for the economy and working class, but only if it is accompanied by an increase in top marginal income tax because of so-called pass-through corporations, or S corporations. A pass-through corporation is a company in which their profits are recorded by shareholders as personal income only, and thus are taxed at that rate rather than the corporate rate. On the other hand, a normal or C corporation's profits are first taxed at the corporate tax rate and then taxed again at the personal income tax rate. So there's currently incentive to be a pass-through corporation to avoid this double taxation. Although being a C corporation comes with distinct benefits for employees, such as deducting certain benefits like health insurance, which allows for greater pay or more employees. Overall, C corporations allow for more and faster growth. So Don argues that by decreasing corporate tax rates and increasing personal rates, the burden that corporate taxes cause will become less enough that the benefits of a C corporation will outweigh the faults, leading to more C corporations either being founded or formed from existing S corporations, which is good for the working class. Others like Kimberly Clausing, an economist at Reed College, who is now a deputy assistant secretary at America's Treasury Department, found no clear relationship between corporate tax and wages in her models. However, I was generally unsatisfied at reading other economists' findings, as so many of them had such different answers. To develop my own answer, which I suggest you to do as well, I compiled various data types of OECD countries, which is basically a subset of countries that are wealthy and uncontroversial. I compiled unemployment data, GDP and GDP growth data, household disposable income data, and of course, corporate tax rates. And then I pulled all of it into a very, very, very long spreadsheet. Although this does not technically isolate the effects of corporate taxes, the sheer number of data points will paint an accurate picture of the effect of corporate taxes. And what I found surprised me. Corporate taxes had seemingly no noticeable effect on the overall economic health of a country. Graphing unemployment, household disposable income, or GDP growth on one axis and corporate taxes on the other yielded a flat dataset and trend line. Furthermore, comparing between countries with similar economies but differences in corporate taxes yielded the same results. Corporate taxes having no discernible impact. Although from this data we cannot gather a concrete correlation between corporate tax and economic health, what I gathered was that the effects of corporate tax rate on an economy at the scale they are in our countries of today is extremely tiny in comparison to other factors like, a worldwide pandemic or recession. To tie this back to the debates about Biden's plans to increase corporate income tax, I believe that raising corporate income tax in the U.S. is a very good way to fund an infrastructure bill. Because in the past, corporate tax rates have had very little effect on the U.S. economy. And we must also consider that the share of all taxes that corporations in the U.S. pay is relatively small. However, this tax rate increase must also be accompanied with the closing of tax loopholes to prevent companies like Google from pulling a double Irish with a Dutch sandwich. Yes, that is a real thing.